How do you break up with someone you live with? I'm not good at breakups because it feels terrible to hurt someone you care about. I've M45, been living with my partner, F37, for a year and a half. It's just not working for me. We like each other, we're friends, but I'm not enjoying being in a couple. We're at that point where if she walked away, I wouldn't stop her, but I don't have the guts to tell her I'd prefer to be single. Part of the problem is that we live together, so once we have the conversation it is going to be extremely difficult for both of us being in the same space regularly. I don't really want to tell her over dinner, then have no place for either of us to go to. Plus, since it's my own home, she'd have to find a new place to live, which is difficult in this city. I'm thinking I can say she can stay here as long as she needs. I can sleep on the couch, but I'm wondering if anyone has any advice on how to make this easier for her. Really struggling with the logistics of this one. Want to be as kind, supportive as possible. Thanks for having a think. TLDR. Any advice on breaking up with someone who you live with? When do you do it? How do you help them if they'll have to move out?
I hate to tell you this, but there's no good, easy way to go about this. Breakups are always miserable. Letting her stay, as long as she needs, is only going to make this harder. Yes, she might run into some money trouble in finding a place to live, but living with your ex long-term is also a miserable situation. I think the best you can do is sit her down after dinner one day and tell her, "This isn't working out. It's nothing you've done. This just isn't working for me. I want to break up. You can stay here for a month while you find a new place, but then you're going to need to move out." If you want to be supportive, consider giving her a break on bills for the month to help her save up money for a deposit. I wouldn't recommend helping her move or giving her money directly. Those are the sort of things that make breakups harder. When your heart's breaking, having the other person be kind to you often makes it worse. While having one of you sleep on the couch is okay, one of you going to an Airbnb or cheap hotel would be better. Space is important. Best of luck. This isn't going to be pretty.
Do not let her stay as long as she needs. Holy cow, that's a terrible idea. Offer to swap a week on the couch, a week off, for the rest of the time she's there. Give her a generous but firm deadline. 60 or 90 days would be fine. It's going to be a struggle, but it will always be a struggle. Having a specific end date and sharing the burden equally is the fairest, best way to do things.
There's no easy way, mate, but there's a way. My wife left me 8 years ago until she found a place to stay. She chose to leave the house to me because she wanted to move to a different place. We shared the house as a sad man and a woman, careful not to hurt him too much. I'd sleep on the couch. She left for work early, so I seldom even saw her. I am self-employed and I arranged my schedule so I could wake up after she left. We watched television together in the evening. We were still friendly. We'd talk about each other's day, and so it was really hard for me, and I'm sure it wasn't easy for her either, but it worked. We weren't arguing or anything, mind. This lasted a little over a month, maybe 6 weeks. It was traumatic, but the main thing was the breakup, not the awkwardness and the sadness of sharing a house in those weeks. It's not easy, but it can be done and survived. Edit. Typos, clarification.
I went through this years ago. I finally just got into my savings and gave her the deposit and first month's rent for an apartment, and told her I couldn't do it anymore. I went and stayed with my best friend and gave her a month to secure a place and move.
I'm a sex and relationship therapist, and here's my advice. Just be honest. You sound caring and genuine in this post. And I know this is probably going to sound like a, "it's not you, it's me" convo, but sometimes that's the honest truth. Some people really do prefer being single, and that's okay. Some people want a relationship but say they could never live with a partner again. Some people prefer polyamory. Everyone gets to decide what works in their life. Explain there's nothing wrong with her, and she hasn't done anything wrong. There's nothing for her to change. It's just not working for you, and if that's the case, breaking it off is the kindest thing to do. She deserves to move on and be happy and find someone who deeply enjoys her in a romantic, intimate way. You've enjoyed your time together, but it isn't what you'd prefer, or however you'd state it. I disagree that exes cannot live together for a certain period of time. Lots of people are friends with their exes and maintain various relationships. The whole, "you have to hate your ex," and "breakups must be volatile," is a very heteronormative thing in queer culture. We're friends with our exes all the time. But you know how this will most likely go. Will it be amicable? Will both people be able to be adults and work through this? I remind people that when you live together or have intertwined your life to a certain extent, breaking up is more of a process than a one-and-done thing. In high school, breakups were less complex, but in adult relationships it's often a process, one that includes disentangling lives. One of the biggest questions that comes up in a breakup is, what does this mean for me? She of course will be asking that question to herself, and you know that it's because that is part of your question here. How will she move forward? Where will she live? What does the next step look like? In the convo, tell her you're happy to help her find a place. Let her stay. How long? Indefinitely? Do you want an end date in mind? 60 days? 45? I wouldn't put a number on it during the initial convo. That may up anxiety. Let her process one thing at a time, then have the timing convo later. That you aren't intending to leave her stranded and want to support her through transitioning out. But again, be honest with yourself. You know how this convo will go better than any of us. Will that kind of arrangement be possible? Will you both be able to be amicable and mature enough to work through this together? Or will there be arguments and hostility? I'd expect to need to give her a week or so to process everything and maybe be more emotional during that time. Can either of you stay with friends or family for a week, weekend if a cooling off time, space is needed initially, before future plans are in motion? You know your situation best. These are all just options to consider. Best of luck. It's not an easy thing to do, but neither is staying in a relationship that isn't meeting either person's needs. You both deserve that. To have your needs met.
About a year ago I told my ex that I wanted to break up and I had to stay at his place until I found something else, which took me 7 months and several talks and paperworks to get done. Shortage on houses and I had nowhere to go. It sucked, but it worked out. Do what makes you happy and she'll be happier too eventually.
Just be real. Maybe you can come exist Leah as easier with 2 people. Depends on how she takes it. If she's strong and motivated, she will be okay, but you have to start somewhere. If it has to be done, then talking about it should be done.
Secondly, she knows it's going south, just tell her.
There is no easy time or place to break up. Dragging it out will only make it worse. When my BF and I broke up, I was living in his apartment, so I was the one who needed to move out. I stayed there 1 month post-breakup while I found a new place. I didn't pay my usual portion of the rent or bills for that month, and my ex offered to pay for the moving costs.
I've been in a very similar situation. If you absolutely can't muster the courage to break things off, then get a job or opportunity in another city. If she's settled with her job, friends, she probably won't think moving with you is worth it. I did this once. Looking back on it though, I should have just gotten the courage to do it rather than be a coward about the whole thing.
Since you own the place, I would look into a couple of places for her to get her own place in apartments or studios or something. Just give her a few choices to pick from. So at the very least she can get out quicker. Take over the bills. If you split Tama ND, let her save up for the month. You'll let her stay, but no longer. If you're both on the lease, make a release from lease contract like rental agencies. Do be sure to check out your local squatter laws as well, in case things go very south and she downright refuses to leave. When helping her find a new place, a studio minus 1 bedroom should be fine, and affordable. Find stuff with preferably a month-to-month lease for her, so if she does get on her feet quickly and finds somewhere else to live, she can move easily. I say look for this stuff for her because you don't want to have to sit and wait for months for her to do something. If you can't find anything like that, look for people who are leasing out a room in their home, or apt college kids usually do this and normally don't care as long as the person isn't creepy and helps pay bills. Last resort should be family, a motel stay for a while, or a shelter.
I went through this. Years ago I finally just got into my savings and gave her the deposit and first month's rent for an apartment, and told her I couldn't do it anymore. I went and stayed with my best friend and gave her a month to secure a place and move.
I went through this. Years ago I finally just got into my savings and gave her the deposit and first month's rent for an apartment, and told her I couldn't do it anymore. I went and stayed with my best friend and gave her a month to secure a place and move.
I went through this. Years ago, I finally just got into my savings and gave her the deposit and first month's rent for an apartment, and told her I couldn't do it anymore. I went and stayed with my best friend and gave her a month to secure a place and move.
I went through this years ago. I finally just got into my savings and gave her the deposit and first month's rent for an apartment, and told her I couldn't do it anymore. I went and stayed with my best friend and gave her a month to secure a place and move.
I went through this years ago. I finally just got into my savings and gave her the deposit and first month's rent for an apartment, and told her I couldn't do it anymore. I went and stayed with my best friend and gave her a month to secure a place and move.
I went through this years ago. I finally just got into my savings and gave her the deposit and first month's rent for an apartment, and told her I couldn't do it anymore. I went and stayed with my best friend and gave her a month to secure a place and move.
You never know, she might be thinking same thing. Tell her the full story with tact. Offer to move into a friend's parents for a few weeks to get her plan together, if you have that option.
I've broken up with a BF that lived in my home, and it was weird but so much better after I had a guest room and told him he could stay there while he found a place to live. I think it was a few weeks.
Don't drag it out, it makes things worse in the end. It may be uncomfortable for a bit. Help her find another place.
Where did she live before she moved in? Does she have friends, family nearby that she could go and stay with?
I handled my similar situation by getting a new job in a different town and moving, but he, sort of, complex story, owned the place. Accepting said new job was stressful. Telling him I was moving was stressful. Telling him I was not expecting us to continue long distance was stressful. I picked a day he was at work to load up the U-Haul with some friends. I slept on the couch.
It's hard, but I've done it twice. It's so fucking hard, but once you do it you feel so much better. Trust me. It is terrible when you want to do it, but you're afraid because you live together. Biting the bullet will be a huge weight off your shoulders.
I suggest you get your ducks in order regarding find a new place to live before you talk to her about it. The living situation is going to feel more acutely like being trapped once it is all out in the open.
How many relationships have you been in? You think you won't be in anymore?
Just kick her out once the relationship is over. You have no responsibility for her. Not to mention, if the shoe was on the other foot, would she be as charitable to you? Ain't ever met a chick like that.
Tell her the truth. It's over. You will give her 3 months so she can save for an apartment. If you live in an area where apartments start at $1,200 per month, she will need to make arrangements with family or move into a motel until she gets back to her feet. The moment things are over, it's over. You are not responsible.
You get your bed back, buy an air mattress for her to sleep.
The more awkward the situation is, the faster she will want to get out of there. If you want to be super polite about your approach, you will never move on. You will never break up, and you will keep pretending everything is fine because you don't like disappointing people. EVENTHOUGH, you are the one suffering. After this breakup, you need to see a therapist. There's some trauma that's making you hold back to do the things you gotta do.
Don't tell her stay as long as she needs. No indefinite pass. Something like 6 to 8 weeks.
Hey, I actually still live with my ex and I don't have plans to move. The relationship just petered out, so there were no hard feelings on either side and there was a spare room for me. It was just slightly awkward for a week. I didn't have to find a new place and she didn't have to find a roommate, and we're good friends, so it just worked out. Very similar situation as op, even down to the length of the relationship. It's not the norm though.
There's no way she's finding a new place within 30 days in a city with a heated housing market.
I think most people in this situation would make every effort to be out immediately. I would say maybe 60 days if she has a lower income, no family in the area to stay with, but agree with the firm deadline. I broke up with someone I lived with. I had to move for a job and I timed the breakup with the move. The move was also part of the reason for the breakup, as he didn't want to move with me. It's tough. Even if it's a short relationship, it can feel like a much more serious breakup when you live together.
TBH, I would not date someone who lived with their ex.
How long after breakup? I did for a while too. I didn't have my own room, but he went to couch. We were friends much longer than a relationship. I didn't feel comfortable having dates over.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. That's red flag city.
3 months now. Being on the couch makes it a lot harder than having separate rooms. She's had dates over and it's fine.
It's not the same thing though. He's her boyfriend, not a random landlord. He clearly cares about her and feels bad about the impending hurt he's going to inflict with the breakup, so adding the stress of apartment hunting on a tight deadline is exactly what he said he doesn't want.
That's good. I was jealous of his new interest, so he wanted me out. Me losing job made that happen. Lasted 9 months after.
I got back into the kink community after the breakup and she has her own things, so not really any jealousy.
I'm vanilla, went on dates, still had strong feelings. Once I love someone, pretty much stays.